Okay, perfect. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay then. Thank you. Yes. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Today we are in week two. I can say session two of ABAP on HANA. Okay. So we are going through the new ABAP syntaxes right now. So let me just quickly go through the agenda for today's session. Then we'll practically start on to the topics. Okay. So today we would be going through the quick recap of what we did in the earlier session. Then we would be starting our second portion of new ABAP. So earlier session, we actually went through the SQL level new ABAP syntaxes. Today, we would be going through the application server level new ABAP syntaxes. So there are plenty of them. You might have also heard of ABAP 7.4, 7.5. So there is something which is this is what we actually call those. So we would be having helper variable, dynamic declaration, the condition and switch operator. Then there are plenty of important ways, or I can say different way of handling or treating the internal tables compared to the read table that we used to use earlier. So for that, we would be learning the value operator, and we can see how we can access the internal table and read those and perform different operation onto the same. Then we would be performing, or you can say we would be creating an example demonstrating the same. So it would become more clear on how these operators can be used in a real world. Then we would be seeing certain conversion routines and certain keywords. Okay. Afterward, if time permits, we would be going through the few more advanced topic of the new ABAP syntaxes, certain conversion casting, the exit operators, and the OOPS concept of, or you can say how the handling of object oriented has been changed compared to what it used to be earlier. Okay. Now let's just quickly go into the system and see how, or we can say quickly start with the session. Okay. Started. That's good. Okay. So in earlier session, we started with something called I can say SQL level new ABAP syntaxes. So we learned that the new ABAP syntaxes comes into two flavors. The SQL level new ABAP syntaxes, which is something called it as an open SQL, and the application server new ABAP syntaxes. So in earlier session, we learned open SQL. As a part of open SQL, what we learn is that there are certain things that would get changed. For example, the separator would become comma in, whenever we are using a particular column selection. The variable that we are using would be escape with something called @ which is something we can call it as an post escape characters over here. Suppose that in case we want to go with any sort of data declaration runtime while selecting the data, we would be going with something called @ data. Okay. And good thing over here is in the same existing program, we can have native SQL as well as open SQL written at the same time in the same program. Okay. And it ultimately helps us that once we learn the new ABAP syntaxes, we can start utilizing it not only on a fresh program, but also on the existing program if there are any into our system. Okay. So we learn how I can declare a new variable, how I can utilize the earlier variable that I have already declared. Then we learn something called union and union all. So union is nothing but a union distinct. So whenever we are appending earlier in SAP ECC, we used to use SAP ECC. Okay. And when we used to use SAP ECC, the drawback over here was that we were jumping onto multiple servers at a time. And the issue, so over here, the multiple servers jump used to take some amount of time. Of course, it won't be that visible, but still it used to take some time. So we have shifted everything onto a database, something what we can call it as a union. Okay. Now, post that we also learned that the syntax that we learn, OpenSQL, is very much compatible with that of the CDS. So we also went into the system and generated a very first sample CDS view. So if I just click over here, then I would be able to see the sample CDS view that we created. So here it is. This is how the CDS view would be looking alike. This is in a SAP GUI, so it looks a bit different. We ideally develop the CDS view in a Eclipse. That's what it is written. So we try utilizing the same knowledge that we gain over here, and we were able to generate the CDS view as well. Then suppose that we learn something called, just say, new syntax, or I can say the built-in function. I guess what the was the thing that we picked next. Yeah. So as a part of built-in function, we learn certain string manipulation function, number arithmetic, date manipulation, and the dynamic condition column declaration. So we learned that if you want to declare a column dynamically based on certain conditions, we can declare that with and without pilot variable. So when I say without pilot variable, at that particular point in time, you would be defining the whole condition at when level. So the advantage is you can write it on any sort of columns. But if you want to write it on a single column, you can also go with a condition column with a pilot variable. So here I have a BUKRS, and based on BUKRS's value, I am determining the value of a new condition column. Then we learn string manipulation function, date manipulation, and the numeric functions. Okay. So and over here, one more thing that we learn is whenever we are going with an open SQL syntaxes, whenever this query is simple, then of course it would look like it as it was earlier. But whenever the query is becoming more and more complex, you would find one change, that the where clause over here would be promoted one step upper than that of the into. Okay. So into clause would come at the very end, because we are going with some sort of dynamic declaration. So system needs to identify the structure of the table at runtime. So before building it, it should be able to capture, okay, what is the data that is actually going to come as a part of the internal table. Okay. And that is why the into clause in new ABAP syntaxes, ideally you would find those appearing at the very end of the selection, I can say select statement. And then we learn on to certain limitations as well, that there are particular there are data which are not easy to compress for the HANA database. So we know that HANA engine work on a data compression. Whenever it's working on data compression, it would be able to compress the data and generate the index table for the well-defined columns. For example, I'm saying a character 20 column, then data compression is possible. But whenever there are a kind of unlimited data types, or I can say string data type which is coming, or I can say the content which is coming, the blob container, which X string which contains the image or anything, any sort of media content. At that particular point in time, the data compression would be an issue. So if you see here, I was trying to use for all entries in, and I was prompted with an warning saying the column with string, row, string, low, L row, and everything should not be used in select, because the distinct semantic would be violated. Why? Because it would prevent the optimization from being made on the database table. So on the database side, the optimization won't occur, and that's why the system has to go row by row. Okay. Now, this was something that we did on to the database side. Now let us just try to learn the new ABAP syntax, is the whole world of new ABAP 7.4 and 7.5 that we call it as a. We would start with something called a helper variable. Okay, so I'll just say yeah, we don't have any package for now, at least we'll create one. Now, what is a helper variable first? Okay, so let's just understand the term. When we call a helper variable, so any variable which helps intermediately um, as a temporary storage is called a helper variable. For example, let's just say I want a simple string. Okay. So there are multiple definition, or we can say there are multiple type of helper variable that we can think of. For example, I want text. Okay. And it should store is it as a just a sample text, and because I want to use it somewhere, so instead of directly declaring it as a some sort of string or some sort of char 30 variable, if I use it over here, this is something we might have we can call it as a some sort of inline declaration that we have done on our application server level. But as this variable is serving a purpose of a local variable which is storing the information intermediately, so it is providing the temporary storage. That is why it is called a helper variable. So if it that's straightforward, I can consider a helper variable is nothing but an inline declaration. Kind of, we can say it's a kind of inline declaration, but not 100%. Uh, the purpose is same. So ultimately, the helper variable that we would be having over here is something that we would be declaring inline, definitely. So those would be inline declaration that we would be doing. But you know what is the advantage over here? Currently, we just assign a simple string variable. So this particular LV text would be initialized as a string variable. But let's just say I do have a set of data. So I can say, let's just say, so let's just say I do have a internal table over here, which is called LTEKKO, and I want to perform some operation. So I want to iterate on this. So let's just say I am looping onto this. So while looping, I can say LTEKKO into, and here the intermediate variable that I might need would be a work area. So instead of defining the data type for that, I can also go with the data declaration over here like this. So it is also called a helper variable for me because its type would be determined based on the internal table that is already there and on which we are performing all sort of operation that we want. And its type is something that is being determined dynamically at runtime, and we are not specifying it upfront. It would be determined at runtime. Okay. So these also helper variable. So helper variable can be a single variable. It can be I can say work area. It can also be a field symbol. So let's just say I want to loop onto it, but I want instead of field symbol to work for that. I can say LTEKKO assigning field symbol. So when I say a field symbol, the system would identify that I need a field symbol. So as I'm declaring this at a runtime for a temporary storage, this is also a helper variable for me because it is helping me with the temporary storage. This becomes still simple scenario. Let's just talk on to some more scenarios. So any sort of keywords, okay, any sort of keywords which are there into our ABAP, okay, does have a specific form of a input and an output format. Okay, so any keyword that we have into normal ABAP does have a specific form of input and output format. For example, I want to split. For example, I do have this LV text and I want to split it. So I could say that split my LV text, right, at let's just say space character, and I want to split it into let's just say two portion. So I can say P1 and P2. So what should be the type of P1 and P2? I'm not sure. Let the system decide that. So I can say into data LPP1, LVP1, and I can say LVP2. So these two portions I have defined. So these are also called helper variable. It is an output of the split keyword. Based on the keywords that we are using, system would determine its output format. For example, I am saying split my LV text at space, but this time I don't want an individual variable component because I don't know how many how many I can say text string it can contain. I'm not sure how many keywords are there separated by space. I'm not sure whether there are two, there are zero, or there are n number of them. So instead I want to go with table, then I can just say into table data again, then I can directly get the component of those. Here, one thing that you have observed over here is whenever in new ABAP, I can say there are two things. How inline declaration works. How inline declaration works. At OpenSQL level, if you want to define a variable, then you have to use @data. But if you are at the application server level, and if you want to declare a variable over here, then what you can use? Simply data. So this would go. And why logically SAP might have done this? Because if you see why we were using we were using because we were in the context of a database, right? We were in the context of a database and we were trying to distinguish that the variable that you are using over here, though you are doing the inline declaration on the database, you are trying to create an application server variable. So as a part of this select query, where I am expecting that every execution, whole execution would be done on the database, here I am declaring a internal table, which is an application server level variable, and that's why we need a distinct something which can distinguish the we can say environment, and that is why we need a @data. But here, everything and anything I am writing is on an application server. And as I am on the application server, I do not need to define anything, okay, which can distinguish whether I am on application server or database. And that is why the only data keyword would be worked over here. So I don't need a @data. And if you specify that, then it won't work as well. That would be a wrong syntax. So on an OpenSQL, you have to use @data, whereas over here you have to use just data. So here I can say LT component because that's a tab. So this is also a very simple component that it would generate. Let's just go one more step ahead. Let's just say I want, okay, let's just check the things. Those are actually generated in the database, sorry, onto the system, but via debugger. So we can visualize it easily. Let's just execute this. So here, if you see, I do have LV text. So which the system identified, okay, what it should be. So system says it should be character 11. So it is assigning the exact amount of space that this string would require. And that is why the inline declaration is preferred, because it would only assign the required storage space. So your session can execute the task with a low memory consumption. Someone wants to say something? Okay. Now, let's just say I do have a work area which I have defined, and the type of the work area is same as that of the internal table. Here I do have defined two components over here, and those are also string. If I go in LT-com, then it's a table. It's a table with one column. So it seems it's very simple. The system is identifying those. Let's just go one more level. Let's just check whether the system is able to recognize the type which are bit complex. So for example, here I want to recognize some sort of information via some sort of global search. So for example, I want to search this LTEKKO table with a character called, okay, what it would be giving. For example, 1710. Let's just try to search the information 1710 over here. So we would be searching for that, and system should ultimately give us the index of the lines where actually this character is there. So what we would be doing, we would be using one more very well-known syntax called find all occurrence of. Okay, and here find all occurrence of would ultimately take some input. Either you can have it a hard-coded input, or you can also ask the system any user to also pass that. So I can say, let's just say parameters p input type. I can give it as a, let's just say char 30. So I can say find all occurrence of the input I am passing, which are there in a table called LTEKKO. Okay, and we want to search it in character mode, and we want to go bit more in case sensitive. So I can say ignoring case. Here comes the important part, the results, and here we would be specifying the data, and we would be saying, okay, give me the results of how the matching of the string is occurring whenever I'm specifying the information. So here if I just pass 1710, so you would be getting that though we have 1000 record and the output also contains 1000 record, because it contains all the information. Let's just try to search for something which would be a bit, okay, let's just say fine. I want to search for example, this. Wherever the 45 all 021 is occurring, then give me those information. That's what I want to say. Like this. So here LT results contain just 93 records, because these are the only record where actually the PO number is starting with that. What it says, that your result is line item number 2, 3, 4, 5 and everything. So these are the records which contains the matching record. But that is how the find all occurrence work. That's not our main point of interest over here. Our main point of interest is using the data, you would be able to define the structure, be it a simple character, be it a work area, be it a field symbol, be it a single table with a single column, or there is a very deep table. So here there is a table which contains 3 columns with different data type, and one more internal table is there as a part of that. Okay, so this particular sort of table, which earlier we used to search the type of into a Google or somewhere where we have already written a program before defining the results data type, LT result table. Here we can simply say data result, and system would determine and generate the table in the form that it ultimately gives the output. Okay, we do not need to worry about how the output structure would be looking like. That the system that would be the system's headache going forward. Okay, so this is something we can consider it as a helper variable. So that is the meaning of a helper variable, and this helper variable would help us with the intermediate temporary storage. Type of it would be determined by the system automatically. Okay, I hope it makes sense. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, Sumit.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Sumit, if
Now,
there are lakhs of records in production, if you are using this type of query, does
mhm.
the performance still increase? Does it give performance issues, or will it go for timed out or something? If there are lakhs of records in production.
Okay, so it depends scenario to scenario. So ultimately,
Yeah,
we have just started into ABAP on HANA, and we have just seen the new ABAP syntaxes, right? So we do
yeah.
have a CDS as well, which gives us a global
Okay, okay,
search. We have
okay,
AMDP as well, which gives us a fuzzy search. So we would be coming on to that point. So we
okay,
would be determining which things is more usable and effective. Okay.
okay.
Okay. Now, so next thing that we would like to learn over here, let's just promote one thing. Um, Ultimately, condition and switch is also something that we would be seeing. Let's just go with something that we already know, because we do have a platform for that. We do have a already available internal table. So of course, I don't want everything to just loop around, because that's not required. So I'll just close this out for a while. Okay, what we want is a internal table operations. We want that the internal table that we used to perform the operation upon earlier, how we can perform the operation right now. So earlier, if I want to search for a particular purchase order which is containing, for example, let me just add one more member to the family. let's just say I want to search for my LTEKKO table. Okay. And I want some sort of result. And I want to search by, let's just say, vendor number, for example. There is a listener. Okay, it is in the right form. So I can say with key, and here I want to pass my listener equal to something. This is what we used to write when it comes to a old syntax, and how we would be determining whether the search we are trying to perform over here is success or not. We used to rely upon my psi sub RC. So I can say if psi sub RC is equal to 0, then it's success. We can say else, and here we would be writing the case of a failure. Very simple. Now, let's just say I want to do the same thing. I want to perform the same operation via a new ABAP syntaxes. I can say read a table via new ABAP. Here, let's just say I do have two sort of operation. Okay. First is I want to read an internal table, but the work area. So whenever I am reading an internal table using read table, what I can expect in return? A work area. So if I do have a work area and I want to use that, I can directly say lsekko, for example, like this. But let's just say I am reading it for the first time and I don't have a work area, then I can also say lsekko1 over here. And this would ultimately behaves the same as that of the array concept that we used to have in C, C++, Java, like that. So we would be specifying the name of the internal table. And here we would be specifying the filter parameter. For example, here we do have a listener, so we can directly specify it like a listener and like this. Just a moment, so it's taking some time.
Sumit, till then I had a doubt here. So
Yeah,
that
please.
at the rate data is always used when we are using it inline declaration.
We are using inline declaration via a open SQL syntaxes.
Open SQL syntax. Okay.
Correct.
And the normal data declaration with respect to data, what we are doing, what the
So,
code what we have written now at line number 61, it comes at application server level.
exactly. This is an application server level.
Okay.
So I am trying to read the information. Wow, the
Yes.
server is still slow. Yeah. So we have the data saved. So ultimately we have read this information, and now we can expect the same set of output because we are passing the same set of information. We are going by the linear source. So let's just try to activate this for a while. Let's just try executing this. Oops. The issue of now. Here we do have a lsekko over here. This lsekko would give us the record that we are getting after reading this information. The lsekko1 over here is also giving us the same set of output information over here. So ultimately we are same going via the linear search over here. So I just reopen this. And what we do have as a part of a read table additionally is we can also have a binary search. The rule for using a binary search is my internal table should be sorted based on something. So either I can use the same order by at my SQL, or I can use the order by, or I can say short statement at my listener level. But the drawback of using the new ABAP based internal table is binary search is not possible using a new ABAP syntax. So here you don't have any sort of keyword or extension which gives you a liberty of specifying a binary search. Always what you would be specifying over here would be search in a manner of a linear search. So if there are 1,000 record, it would go line by line. Wherever if there are binary search mechanism available, so we can expect that in future SAP might come up with something like that. But currently we don't have a binary search operation possible over here. Okay, but we do have a plenty of other things. But whenever we are learning new things, it's also good to know what is something which is not possible. Okay, so binary search is not possible whenever it comes over here. Now, one more thing of interest for us over here is, for example, we mentioned that if I just put a breakpoint somewhere over here. Then I do have a LSEKQ. I am getting the information. If I just say F6, I am getting a size of us equal to 0, and I am getting the record. If I go one more step down over here, and for example, for our course of interest, if I just go over here and if I do some sort of change, for example, size of us equal to 4, I am doing. If I press F6 over here, the LSEKQ1 over here is still getting the value, but if you see the value of size sub RC has not been altered yet. It means the read table over here, if we are using, we can depend on size sub RC on to determine whether a particular search we are doing is a successful or not. But whenever you are using LTEKQ, size sub RC is not reliable thing. So what is alternate? How we can identify whether the search we are using over here is a valid or not? So I can say, okay, let's just use it for two purposes then. I can say here, let's just try to pass the information via the system only. If I just say execute and if I try searching for this same information over here, so I would be getting the information. I can say, okay, search for this particular vendor. It would behave the same way. Now let's just go other way around. Let's just try to search for something, oops, which is not there. So for example, SSU, this is a not valid vendor. If I just say execute over here, here I can expect that size sub RC should turn into 4 because that's not a valid one. If I just go one step down, I am getting a dump saying IT line tab not found. I am getting an exception CXSY itab line not found. So like we have a size sub RC handling in a old, or I can say classical ABAP syntaxes. Same way new ABAP syntaxes works on an exception handling. So you have to handle this exception. This is one way and this is a tedious way. So I have seen very few people using this, but it's good to have the knowledge. So I'll also be telling you what is the alternative that you can use in case you want to go with a new ABAP syntaxes, but you are not big fan of exceptions. Okay. So currently, let's for our learning purpose, let's just write this code in a way that I can say I can have a try catch. I have to handle this exception. I can just write my code over here. So what I can understand over here is after execution of this statement, okay, if I am writing n number of line over here, then this n number of line would only get executed if size sub RC is equal to 0. If size sub RC is turning out into 4 visually as per our old understanding, then I would get my control over here. So if something that I want to execute on failure, I can write it over here. Something I want to write on a success, I can write it over here. Okay, so when you are using new ABAP syntax is internal table reading, then this is how you would be handling the failure case. So here if I am exception is being raised and I would be somewhere over here. This is one way. There are other ways as well. That is something we would be coming on to. But currently, let's just focus on the syntax that we are having. So what I'll do is, this is one way I can read the table with a column. If I want to read an internal table as well using index, so I can say index 1 over here, for example. Same when comes with a new ABAP syntax is I can also have a LSEKKO1, and here I can say LTEKKO, and here I can directly pass the index. This is also one of the possible way. So using index, we can also do the reading of the table, and this looks more classy, more easy, and more handleable whenever it comes to a new ABAP syntaxes. Okay, fine. Now, what is the other sort of read table query that we used to write? We used to write a read table where we used to just check okay, well, if a line is there or not. If it's not there, then of course we don't care, but we were depending on Sai Sabasi on the existence of the record, and we used to write our logic over there. So if I just say read table LTEKKO transporting no fields with key, and here I used to specify, for example, listener equal to T underscore input. Okay, this is something that we used to write for the checking of an existence, whether a line exists or not. And we used to write our logic saying if Sai Sabasi is equal to 0, and here we used to write else statement. This is something that we used to write. Whenever it comes to new ABAP syntaxes, we do have one more thing over here. So if we want to check whether a line exists or not, what we would be doing, we would simply say if line exists. So here we would be saying if a line exists, we would be saying LTEKKO over here, and we can pass the same set of input. So here if you see the resultant variable, or I can say the result is not being stored anywhere. Instead, it would give you a Boolean output. I can say true on success, false on failure. So here the Sai Sabasi handling is something that we can get rid of. Here, if a record is success, if we want to figure out, okay, at which particular line item my search is getting resulting into a success. So here we can also find the line number. How we used to get that? We used to specify data LV tabix equal to a system variable we used to rely upon. We used to rely upon the Sai tabix over here. Here, what we have here, like we have a line exists, we can also have something called, for example, LV tabix 1, and here we used to have line index. We do have a line index over here, which just say for the combination which you are trying to read, what is the line which is giving the success information? If the record reading is success, in case of a failure, definitely it won't come over here. And if you want to write something over there, then you can rely on the else part. So this is how the transporting new fields can be written in an alternate way. If we want to get the total lines, earlier we used to write describe table, then we used to specify the let's just say table information, and here we used to specify lines, and we would used to get the count of the record. Okay. In new ABAP, we have again a keyword. So mostly you might have observed that new ABAP works in a manner of a left hand side equal to right hand side. So LHS equal to RHS. That's how a new ABAP syntax works. So I can say LV, let's just say lines, and we can specify a keyword called lines over here. And in the lines, you can directly pass the name of the internal table. And this internal table line would be counted and it would be assigned to your LV lines over here. So this is what it is. Like in ABAP, we used to read with a key, read with an index, read with a transporting no fields, and reading just for a existence check and fetching the line item. So this is how we can write it alternatively. If we do have multiple input. For example, I am more interested in how let's just say BUKRS also is matching with my, let's just say 1710. If you want to read something like this, then you can again say BUKRS over here equal to 1710. So here the scenario is similar. Like you used to specify it without any sort of delimiter, same way we won't be specifying any delimiter but space. Okay, so we would be specifying each and every filter that we want to pass in an internal table with a space, and we can specify a number of columns over here. Okay, so this is how it would. Oops. There must be a space or equivalent character after 1710. Yeah, okay, fine. Okay.
Hi,
Yep.
Samit.
Yes.
In ITEKKO, I don't want all fields. I want to fetch means read only 2, 3 fields. How to do that?
Okay. Tell me one thing. Can you do that over here? No. Okay. But here there is a chance. Okay. I am not saying it's not possible. Here I am not saying 2, 3 fields. But if you want to search for few fields, or I can say a single field, then it's possible. For example, if I don't want to search for all this information. Instead, I am only interested in the EBLN. Then I can say dash, and he would be prompted with all the fields that you have. So I can say I want to search for EBLN, and here it would just give you EBLN. So either you can go for a whole work area reading, or you can read the, either you can go with whole work area reading, or you can just read the field. I mean particular field. That is what it is possible. You
Okay,
can't.
one single variable, it is possible.
Yeah. So like we write it in ls ekk or dash something. Same thing can be done over here. You can have that. Okay. Okay. So this is how it is, and this is how you would be able to get that. One thing, I'm not sure 100%, but I think something can be achieved on the question that you stated. I have not done that earlier, but I can try it using one combination that I'll be come back to you in few minutes. Okay. Let's just try that thing. That's an interesting thing and can be usable, but I'm not sure whether it's possible or not. Now, so I hope till now it is clear. Now, we would be learning one more keyword, then we would be coming on to alternate way of handling this exception. Okay, for that, let's just learn one more keyword, a very important keyword in the new ABAP syntaxes family called a value keyword. Even I have seen people asking in an internet interview question. Let's just say many of time when someone asks for the introduction in interview, people say, okay, I am using this, I have experience working with this. I prefer using new ABAP syntaxes. Then the first question that the interviewer asks is, okay, just tell me, okay, if you are using new ABAP syntax, what is a value keyword? Because this keyword is something which is being used in new ABAP syntax very vastly. Okay, the purpose is very simple. It's not doing any sort of thing which is not possible without it. Okay, it's possible. If we don't have a value keyword, our life won't stop, but still it is very much usable. So for example, I have a internal table that I want to fill the values in. Okay, then I can use a value keyword for that. If I do have a structure which I populate the value into, then I can also use a value keyword for that. So ultimately value keyword is very much helpful. For example, if I just say I have a structure which I want to fill a value into. So for example, I do have a LSEKKO. I think we do have it already. Yeah. If we do have a LSEKKO over here, then I can directly fill the value into this via something. So earlier what we used to write is, let's just say I do have this work area. I want to use it somewhere. We used to write, okay, clear this particular work area, LSEKKO. Then we used to write, okay, LSEKKO dash, I can say, okay, EBLN equal to 1, 2, 3. Then I can say LSEKKO dash BUKRS equal to, I can say 1710. Likewise, we used to write. So we used to populate the information over here. With a value keyword, we can do these things in a single step. So first, let's just understand the syntax of a value. Not only for just the value syntax, 80% to 90% of the keyword in SAP's new ABAP library are formulated in a way that you can write it using LHS equal to value over here. You can specify data type, or I can say you can specify a hash and you can specify the parameters that you want to pass in. So let's just try to learn this. Okay, what it is trying to say. So on the left hand side, you would be specifying a variable. For example, I am specifying LSEKKO. Then I would be specifying a value keyword. Then the data type or hash. So this is or I have written. What it says is if the variable on the left hand side is not having any sort of type defined to it. Does my LSEKKO has any sort of type defined? Yes, it is a work area of a LTEKKO. So it does have a definited type. Then I would be using a hash. If I might be going with some sort of inline declaration, in that case, I would be using a data type. But 90% of the cases, value keyword would be used with a hash keyword, because as it is a deep structure that it is allowing you to fill deep structure or a deep table, mostly it's advisable and it is used in a way that the left hand side variable is already defined. I can say value hash over here. I can specify I want to fill the EBLN over here, which is let's just say 234. BU carries over here. If you see, I am not specifying any sort of comma or anything. I 1710 BSART equal to, let's just say, NB BSTYP equal to, for example, F. For example, last but not the least, listener I want to specify, and I want to specify it as a, let's just say, let's just user do decide that. I can say okay, P input. Anything I want to specify, be it a fixed value or a variable, anything. But filling a destination variable from based on its skeleton in a single step, okay, can be done using a value keyword. It's not only a structure which it actually works with. It works with an internal table as well. So for example, I want to fill my LTEKK over here. I have LTEKK, but still I want to fill the values into LTEKK again based on the value I am interested in. I am not willing to depend on the database. So I can say value over here. Here, the system would be able to identify that if value keyword is having only one bracket inside it, then you are trying to populate a structure. If you are trying to specify one bracket, or you can say one parenthesis on outer side and multiple parentheses over here, then you are trying to write a table and it is having, let's just say in this case, 3 records. So for example, I want to specify EBLN equal to 1, 2, 3. Here I want to specify EBLN equal to 2, 3, 4, and here I am also specifying listener equal to P input. And here I want to specify my EBLN again, and it is this time, let's just say 3, 4, 5, and here I want to specify BU carries. And BSART and number of columns, whichever I want to specify. Then the system would ultimately populate this value, the LTKKO, with the value I am passing on. So the system won't ask you to declare a work area, then populate a value. Instead, it would directly assign the values that you have over here to the table over here. Okay. Now, many a time it also happens that you don't want to just override the table. Okay. For that, let's just have an understanding of what value keyword is actually doing. Then it would become more clear what is an override, what a overriding is. I'll just activate this. I'll just go over here, put a breakpoint, execute this.
Sumit, still
Yeah,
the code
please.
what we have still what we have written is at application server level only, right?
Yeah. So ultimately, new web syntaxes are at two level. One it is
Yeah,
a database level, one is a application server level. The
yeah,
application server level code over here is optimized in a way that the amount of iteration it would perform to give you the output would be limited. Why it
limited.
is an
Yeah,
application? Yeah. So that is a way. So there are two ways of optimizing your performance. Either you remove your, or I can say reduce your iteration, or just send it to an engine which is fast enough. Now HANA is
okay,
fast enough, so SQL can do that, but certain
yes,
things cannot be done on a SQL level. So we would be asking application server to do that.
server.
But yeah, okay. So that is what we are
Okay,
doing over. Okay, so I'll just jump over here directly. So my LSEKQ over here used to have some sort of value. I'll just say F6 because I don't want those values. I'll just clear that out. My EBLN and BUCaris is now populated and it is having two values like this. If I say LSCKK over here and my system is trying to pass the value over here, if you see, if I just say F6, it would clear old value and pass the new values over here. In my LTEKKO, there used to be 1000 record, or I can say there are 1000 records right now. If I just say F6 over here, now if you see, system has cleared those old values and appended new value to it. Okay, so ideally, the value keyword works in a way that the clear statement is also executed internally before populating any sort of value. So value keyword can help you while inserting new data. But let's just say I want to append the new records as well. I have a LTKKO which is containing 1000 records, and on top of it, I want to insert 3 more records. What I can do for that? So I have a keyword called a base keyword. So when I say base, I am providing the base as a source of the data which would be there at the top, and afterwards I can expect new records to get inserted, and it does not go in any sort of bracket. In here I'll directly specify base the old record which are already there and append new records on top of that. If I just say execute now, so this time my LTKKO would contain 1003 records. Okay, it would preserve those 1000 records, and on top of it, this 3 record would also get inserted. Okay, so this is how a base keyword works. Okay, now each time it won't be the case that you do have an internal table, you are populating that. Many times it also happens that, let's just say you have a table. Let's just define a table for the example. For example, PO data, for example. I can say PO type EKQ EBLN. Here I am saying, let's just say company code. Document category, and let's just say vendor. Okay, and I want an existing table, but now I want to fill my table called LTPO data from my LTEKKO, which is there. So this should be my source table, and I want to fill my target table. So earlier, what we used to do, we used to iterate on LTEKKO, like loop at everything, right? This is something we used to write, loop at my LTEKKO and something. And here we used to assign, or you can say create a work area for this and write a append statement on top of that. What we can do in a new web, I can say LTEKKO over here, and I can say value hash Here I'll just say I want to iterate on a table. So when I want to iterate on a table, what we ideally use, we use a loop. But loop is not a keyword which ultimately value identifies. It would write this, but if you see, you would be getting an error because that's not a valid syntax that you can use over here. Within the value, we have three kind of loop that we can use. Today we would be learning only one kind of those, which would be used the most frequently. Tomorrow we would be seeing the other two kind of loops as well. First one is we can write a for statement. After a for statement, you can specify a name of the work area. For example, LSEKKO line. And here you can specify like we used to specify into it loop at. Here we will be just specifying in LTEKKO. And here you would be specifying a bracket. You can keep on assigning those 5 fields of the LT PO data. Here I can say PO for example, and it should get the data from LSEKKO line. And I want to assign the value of EBLN over here. PQRS is company code. Then I can say document type. Document category. And I want to go with a vendor as well. So we would be looping onto an internal table over here. And after iterating on this, it would assign the values to this. It would also be possible if you want to assign some sort of value which is not coming from the loop. For example, to the vendor, the value which I want to assign is not coming from here. Instead, I want to assign a value to the vendor which is coming via the input. So I can say, okay, P input. So this is a value which we are assigning via the input. For example, okay, let's just go in that direction one step afterwards. So I can say LTPO data, which you would be finding it is having 1003 records and are assigned to its relevant column over here. Okay. And if you just go one more step back, if you see LTPO data, if I just say, okay, let me just clear this internal table out. I'll just say F6 and my whole table would be filled and it would be assigned to my LTPO data. This whole execution would be done in an optimized way. I can say it would be done on a actual SAP server kernel level. It would be doing the execution. So it would be upper layer of an application server which would be doing this execution and it would be done in a more optimized way. Okay. Now we can have the values assigned on an P input which is coming also from an input. On top of that, if we also want to assign some sort of hard-coded value as well, or I can say some sort of value which is fixed for everything. So I can say if I want to declare some sort of variable which is very local to this particular iteration which is happening, I can define a variable which is there only in this particular scope using a keyword called a let. So when you say let, so like we used to write in a mathematics when we were studying in a school or a college, we used to write, okay, let a equal to 10, let b equal to 20. So that let is something that we can use over here. It's the same kind of thing. And we can declare some sort of variable. For example, I am saying let LV doc category over here is defined as a hard coded as a, or it can also come based on certain condition. That is something we would be seeing into an example. So it can be a fix or a runtime value, but we would be defining a scope for that. So I can say let LT doc category equal to a, and it would be used in a scope. So this let and in would always come in a combination. And you can directly say LV document category over here. I want to assign it from here. Okay, so you can assign the LV doc category coming via this particular variable that is defined. Currently, we have seen of an example where we are getting the fixed values for LV docket. I'll also be showing you one example where the let variable can also take a value of a dynamic one. For example, if I also want to go right now, I can say mm, 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 year date, for example, the creation date. You can also say that I want to define a creation date as side datum over here, and you can assign the value of it from the creation date. So you can have a fixed value, you can have a variable value, and you can also have a value which is specific to the iteration, that on based on the values of certain record, you can, if you want to assign the values, then that is also possible. But that is something you would be seeing going forward into an example. Okay. So I can see that this values of the variable would be assigned to an internal table. Just execute this. Oops, it was at last anyway. So here, if you see, it is getting ER date from the current date. Vendor we assign, document category we also assign from the let variable. Okay, this is one portion. Next thing we want to learn over here is if we are iterating on a loop, okay, we should also be able to specify some sort of filters. For example, I want to only show the information where I can say, yeah, where my listener is specific. So I only want to get the information where the vendor is VSF04 because I want to replace it with the input. So I can say in that case, if you want to specify a where condition, you can specify it like where over here. Then you would be writing a listener over here equal to, and if you specify it like this, if you say, you are getting an error. So the rule is whenever you are specifying a filter condition, so whenever you are specifying a filter condition, the where condition you have to specify should be there inside a round bracket. There can be n number of conditions now you can specify like and or anything you want to specify, but it should be there inside a round bracket after a where. You can't directly specify that without a bracket. Okay. So these are the skeleton of a value keyword, how it is being used. Very simple one, how this can be used. And going forward, when we would be using into an example, you can see how it can take a complex form of value assignment. Okay. I hope it is clear till now, the value keyword, how you can use that. We would be going more deeper, then it would become more clear to you in a real example as well. Okay. Now,
Yes, sir.
okay, perfect. Now, let's just say we have put some question on to hold over here saying if I am getting the information over here and if it is not valid, so ultimately if I am passing the filters over here and if it is not valid, then I am getting an exception. So what is the alternate way if I don't want to handle the exception? So there are two sort of keywords. I'll first introduce you to one. I can say optional. So this optional keyword is there, which would make this particular reading as an optional. It would say, if you are not getting the data, then don't panic, don't raise any exception. I'll handle it my way. So for example, you are saying data ls ekko1 over here, and let me just write the, okay, I have copied the data as well. Okay, so you are specifying the input over here, and now what you want to do is you want to ensure that even though the data is not there, you should not get any sort of error. What you would be doing for that is you would be specifying a keyword called value over here as well. And here afterwards, the type which is specified in this bracket. So that is how a value keyword is versatile. Ideally, all the new above keywords has a rule saying you can only specify hash over here if the variable on left hand side is declared. Value keyword is versatile in a way that if the result which you are getting as a part of constructor variable is having a predefined, or we can say well defined type, then also you can depend on system for the type declaration. So you can say value hash over here and write the read syntax inside the bracket. And when once you specify value hash inside a bracket and you can specify the read syntax over here, here you would be getting two more, or I can say one more keyword for now. If you just say optional, then system would ignore if you are not getting the data. It won't throw an exception. Now what you can rely upon is a initiality. Now you can say if my LSEKKO1 is not initial, then it means you have got the data. If you have got a cleared data, cleared work area, it means the search was unsuccessful. But here you can get rid of an exception. Oops. Okay, LSEKKO1 is already declared. Let me just go with 2. Fine. If I just put a breakpoint. So here, the information that you are passing over here, LSEKKO2, I should have written over here. But LSEKKO2, if you see, it is an empty one, so it would be initial, and you can write your code over here. But it won't throw you an exception, okay, which used to result into a dump. So there is one keyword called optional, which makes the reading of an internal table as an optional. So this is the most used keyword when it comes with a value keyword and optional. There is one more such keyword. Okay, we would be seeing after an example. I'll just say I want to read an internal table. Okay, I want to read an internal table, but okay, let me just write this code in a proper place. I want to read an internal table, but many a time what happens is you might get a request saying, okay, get me the data of LTEKKO into my LSEKKO with key. For example, listener equal to p input user is passing. If this size sabasi is not equal to 0, then get me the information from LTEKKO with key where my BUKRS is equal to 1711. If this condition is also not getting into success one, then get me the data from my BUKRS equal to 0, 1710. Okay, and if this is also not having any sort of data, then also don't panic, don't raise any exception. Okay, if I want to achieve this sort of data fetching behavior via my new syntax, what can I do over here? For that, one way is fetch the information, say it optional, and if it is initial, then again fetch for the second information. If it is again initial, search for the third information. That becomes very tedious. Instead, in new ABAP, we have a keyword called default. So we do have a default keyword. This default keyword helps you fetching the information hierarchical manner, in a hierarchical manner. For example, you want to get the information in LSCKKO 2, for example. Again, what we had used earlier, let me just try using the same. value of the same can come from LTEKKO over here. Okay, where my listener is equal to P underscore input. But if I am not getting any sort of data over here, then I don't want to make it optional. Instead, I want to give you another option. So, saying from where actually you can fetch the data. Okay. So how you can specify that? We would be using a default keyword for that. So I'll just say, try searching the data for this. I'll just do some sort of alignment over here just to make you understand it easily. So I'll just say, get the value from here by passing this set of input. If you're not getting the value, then give me the default value over here. And this default value would again come from my value hash. And here I'll just specify again LTEKKO listener, or I can say bucares equal to is equal to 1711. If we are still not getting any sort of output over here, then you also want to get the default value over here. And value you want to get the data from is called again LTEKKO bucares equal to 1710. And if I am not getting the data over here as well, okay, then what I want to do, I want to mark this as an optional. Okay. So what we did is we tried achieving the same behavior that we were getting over here. I am reading the internal table. If the search I am writing over here is failure, then I am getting the default value from here. So if the search is getting successful, then I can expect that I would be getting the data directly from here. Otherwise, I would get it from this. If this is also failure, then it would go for this. And here, as I am specified optional, it won't throw any dump. But if I might not have specified optional over here, I can expect a dump to get raised from here. Okay. So along with the default keyword and optional keyword, you can have this behavior. But for that, what we need a value keyword also. Or you can have this default and optional only specify within a value keyword. I can say activate over here. Let's just say I'm specifying a VSSU VSF01. So here after F6 you would be getting size bus equal to 0. So you do have the record. It's for 3491710. If I just go to LSEKKO2, okay, it is the same which is already populated. But if you want to clear that out, you can also, just to ensure you are getting the new record getting populated. Same goes over here. You are trying to pass the input and you are getting the same output over here. And if this record this query might have failed, then you might have got the another output from the another set of execution. Now,
Sumit, one
yeah,
doubt.
please.
So
Yeah,
if
Pratap.
default value, like the first line, if we won't get any output, then it will go for the second one, like it is if else.
Yeah. So let's just say I do have a VSF01 which is specified over here. Now let's just try to search for alternate. I can say if I am not getting any sort of value, then I want a record which is okay. 1 second. Okay, let me just say I am passing this information VSF04 plus okay, BSA RT equal to XY. So this is something that won't give the system an output. Then it would go for 1711 then also it won't get an output. Now you are trying to search for 1710, but if I do that, it would search this very first record, but I am not interested into that. Instead, what I'll just pass to the system is give me the output where the listener is this. So what it would do is 1711 is not a valid company code. So this is a failure condition because this is also not a right combination. So here I do have LSEKKO2. Okay, it is 1710. What is the number? 349. Where is 349? What is 3491? It is some sort of another record. Okay, yeah, I have just fetched the first 1000 records and done some sort of operation. Never mind. I'll just remove this. Okay, I want a record from VSF02 anyway, right? That is something I can expect as a correct one. So this combination is anyway wrong because BSRT is not correct. BUKRS 1711 is also not possible. But yeah, I can accept VSF02. That should be there. If I just say F6, you would get that I have got a record via VSF02, which is the last combination because first two combination failed. If they might have resulted into success, then of course I might not have got the value which I'm getting over here. Okay. So it would work on a hierarchical base. So
Okay.
ultimately,
One more thing.
yeah,
Actually, my
please.
link was not working. So the value, this optional will work only with the value keyword.
Yeah. So this optional you can only specify it is if value is there. Otherwise, system won't be able to recognize
Okay. It will work only with the value keyword.
because it needs something, right? Because
Okay.
there won't be
So,
any constructor instead.
so one more thing where you have mentioned early that introduce the value keyword with the internal table values, right? Can you go to
Mm-hmm.
that code? 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
So here I want to know. So here we have given three options like 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. These lines. So
Mm-hmm.
we can give if we have some data based on assume for bookers 17110 we have many
Mm-hmm.
records. So we can write only one condition also, right? Instead of three, so that we'll get many records in the internal table.
So this is what we did. That is some kind of behavior you are looking for. That I am getting the information. Here I am specifying where condition. You want to specify the where condition on BUKRS only.
No. What I mean is here where you have written at line number 159, 160, 161.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Instead of base or anything, we can specify only one line here, only one condition, like bookers is equal to 1710, so that we get many records. Is that
But
possible?
this is not the filter that you are passing. Look, it okay. It does not have any data source. This is the original record it is passing, and here I am specifying some hard coded fixed values. So if you want to specify like BUKRS equal to
Okay,
1710, it would
okay.
just insert a record which is having rest all the fields blank and BUKRS specified as 1710.
Mhm. So
Okay.
this is just the value we are passing. I mean, like our
Right. So many
yeah.
a time what happens is many a time you might also want to fill some sort of range, some sort of table which is
Yeah.
coming via individual variables. So that is something what we used to perform for that. We used to define a work area, write a append statement for that. That can
Mhm.
be
Okay,
replaced with
but
this. Okay.
okay. So if you want something from another table, then this for where
Yeah,
condition this we have to mention. Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
So this let is there, right, where we are passing a and the current date. So
Hmm.
this when we get data from this already existing table LTEKKO,
Hmm.
so that document category, whichever it may be, it will be replaced by A.
If you are assigning over here, I have
Oh,
assigned it
that's
over
what.
here. That's why
Hmm.
if
That's
I'm
what.
if I have defined it and if I'm not using that, then of course it won't get replaced.
That's what the purpose is. If we use, it will replace whatever
Correct.
it's needed. Okay. One more thing in this value, since we have data in this 158
Mm-hmm.
query, so
Mm-hmm.
it is I mean, clearing 1000. You said value will clear the whole data and three records will be inserted. Only three records will be there.
Correct. Correct.
So what if we don't have data? That 1000 records only will be there, or it will clear that it will be blank.
So what if you don't have the data in LTEKKO? Then of course, ultimately how LTEKKO equal to value works. It first clear the internal table and then insert. So if you don't have LTEK any data in
Not
LTEKKO, then of
not in
course it's
LT, not in LTKKO. What if you have some other data, I mean like wear condition in the below, if you have some wear condition, what I mean to ask is whether this value will clear the previous data, and even if you don't have any data in the next query, it will be blank, right?
ideally value keyword when it starts, it first clear the data then reinsert. Okay.
Okay.
If you want that to be hidden, if you don't want the data to be cleared out, then you have to specify the base keyword for that.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay.
Sumit,
Now,
one more
yeah.
doubt.
Uh-huh.
Actually, for example, we have two internal table, EKKO, EKPO. Uh,
Correct.
I need to look using for keyword both the internal tables. I have to append it to final internal table. How to do that?
For that, there is one way. You have to specify for loop over here, which you are iterating on. Then you have to specify one more loop over here. Okay. And this particular internal table, which you are looping over here, like LSEKPO, and here you would be getting the another internal tables data, and you can specify the information. Like if you want to specify only iterate on a let's just say EBLN, where my EBLN is equal to something which is coming from here in EBLN. So here you would be having access to two work area, LSEKKO line and LSEKPO. So one line which you are specifying over here, right, you can assign the values from thus to both of work area. So what you are asking is, let's just say you do have a single table that you are now trying to fill. It is having the records, or I can say column from both of them. EBLN is there, EBLP is there, then you have material number, then you have bucharest, and everything you want to fill in a single internal table. As a source, you have two internal table. So you can iterate on both of them like this, and then after doing this, you can assign the fields of your target field. So target field would be listed on the left hand side variable. So it should be part of the LTPO data. So LTPO data should have EBLN. So EBLN you would be assigning would come from EKKO line. But when EBLP you are assigning, you would be assigning it from LSEKPO, because that is a table which is giving the data for that. And we are already ensuring that you are filtering on this. So let's just say for
Yeah, for
one table,
example, in the means in case if we want put if conditions like that, can we put in this for loop case if conditions?
which if condition, this condition.
Yeah, after means we are looping first EKQ, right? I
Mm-hmm,
am based on document type means we have different document like NB something different document type.
mm-hmm,
They
mm-hmm.
want to write means some conditions means additional data based on our document types in EKQ. So that time can we put if conditions in that after for loop?
Okay, within while assigning the value, can you put a condition or not? That's what you are asking, right? So for
Yes,
example, you want to say if my x equal to y, then I want to assign the local variable, else
yes,
I want to assign this. Okay, that
yes.
is possible, but there is a separate syntax for that. Let me just tell you that as well. So now what that is a point that I was coming on to, the condition operator. You can write a condition, but if is not something that you would be able to use. Okay, let me just tell you as well, because that we would need, of course, for the next example. So that was the next point I was coming on to. So I'll just park your question for a minute and then we'll come into that. Now, for example, I have a data over here, and let's just go with what we already have. Okay, let's just say I have a condition which I want to specify. So earlier ways of specifying a condition, as you mentioned, was if let's just say if I have a, let's just say, system language, for example, if it is English, I have logged in with English, then I want to do something. For example, I want to define a LV local string equal to ABC. Okay, I am specifying condition, I am performing some sort of operations over here. Same way, we have another ways of specifying a condition, like a case statement saying if my sci is this, and let's just say if it is English, if it is German, and if it is others. And here I want to specify that my local string should be replaced with, let's just say, case ABC. And here it should be replaced with, let's just say, case, okay, case English ABC, and I can say case German and case other. So based on a condition, I can evaluate and assign a particular variable. Based on the condition evaluation, I can populate a target variable. That is possible. One thing which is not possible over here is you can't do two things at the same time. First, this is a condition evaluation which is happening, and here you are doing the value assignment. Same thing is happening over here. Here you are doing condition evaluation, and here you are doing the value assignment. Can I do like this, that data LV local string equal to if let's just say psi langu equal to E, then I can say ABC, and I can say and if. Is it possible? It is not possible, because that is not the working mechanism of a if. That's not how a if works. If requires two steps, but the condition, or I can say the behavior that you are looking for, that the condition should get evaluated, at the same time the document category should get a dynamic value assigned to it. So these two steps needs to be performed in a single one, and for that we do have a condition keyword over here. Okay, I'll be just coming on to that. Just a minute. I think server is taking some time while saving the code. Just a moment. So here we do have a condition keyword for that. As a part of condition, what we would be doing is we would be evaluating a condition, and whatever is the output, we would be directly assigning it to the direct output variable. Okay, that is something that we can do using condition. Why it is taking so much of time? Just allow me a moment. Okay, so I think server is good. It's back. Okay, so here, if I want to do two things in a single step, if I want to evaluate the condition, at the same time assign the variable like this, data LV local string equal to, I can write a condition over here, and the output I want, again, I hope you remember, the syntax of a new ABAP would always be the left hand side variable equal to the keyword, and here it would be a data type, or if the data type is already declared, then hash and then the parameters. So here the type is not declared. So what I'll just specify, I want string output, for example. And here I'll just say, if my condition you are specifying, here you would be saying when my psi langu is equal to English, then you are specifying, let's just say ABC. So here in the single go, you are evaluating a condition, at the same time assigning the value also to it. So my LV local string would get a value as ABC, because I am logged in English. If I might have logged in German, it might have got XYZ. And in other language, if I log in, I might have got others. Okay, this is something which is possible. And this is doing two things. This is evaluating and assigning the values at the same time. And this is something that we would need over here. So to answer your question, if the document category you want to assign only if I can say condition over here, condition hash, because the variable on the left hand side document category does have a designated type to it. So I can say condition hash over here. I can say when let's just say I have already provided a filter. Yeah, let's just say don't have anything special, but I can say any sort of condition when my, let's just say view chars is equal to 1710, then assign the document category that we are having assigned in a the local variable that we have defined. Otherwise, assign the value that we are getting earlier. I can say lsekko line dash the original company code that was there, just keep it as it is. So here the local value assignment that we did is not based on the local variable always, instead it is conditional. If the BUKRS is assigned is 1710, then only go with the value overriding, otherwise assign the original company code that was there. Sorry, assign the original, I can say BSTYP that was there, because it's a document category. It's not that only you can assign a condition. Value keywords with a value assignment gives you one more liberty. Here, if you want, you can also call a method. Okay, I don't have any sort of methods handy, otherwise I would have do that. But here you can think of, you are getting get company code, which is having a returning parameter, and you can directly pass something, whatever input you want to pass. For example, EBLN equal to LSEKKO line EBLN. This is something that you can pass. So it's not that you can only give the values from here or the hard coded value. You can also have conditions are evaluated. You can also have some methods getting triggered, and that method's returning parameter can also be assigned directly over here. That is very much possible. Okay, but I don't have a method handy, that's why I won't be doing that for now. But yeah, it is also possible, just for your knowledge. So this is how a condition works. Same way we do have. Yeah, please.
Can you come to the code where you have written? Yeah.
Definitely.
So this line number, that for condition is there, right? For line number 171.
Just
okay.
a minute, just a minute, my friend. Yeah, now tell me.
Yeah. So line 171, the for statement where we have written, right? So if there are multiple where conditions, we can directly have those in the bracket, right?
Yeah, like and A equal to B,
Anything,
and
okay, or anything, okay.
Anything.
Okay,
Or
yeah.
you can also have one more thing, as you have asked. If you want to start iterating from line item number 10,
Yeah,
it would also work.
yes.
So is it clear till now to everyone, or is there any question? Anytime you can ask me, that's not an issue. Okay. Now, so the condition is one part. Another thing that we have over here is a switch keyword. So as a part of our classical ABAP, we used to have if statement and the case statement. As a part of new ABAP syntaxes, we do have a condition statement, which is called COND. At the same time, we do have a switch keyword. So I can say, if I want to have one more string, I can say LV string. I can also say switch. So when I say a switch, of course, as the variable on the left hand side is not defined, I would go by the same rule. I'll just specify a type. For example, let me just give this time char 30, because that's also a valid data type, data element. So I can specify any data element I want. Okay. Now, what I want over here is the switch. So when I say a switch, I have to specify on which variable you want to switch on. Like switch is I can say a brother of a case. You have to specify switch on a variable. So I can say based on the system language, I want to determine when it is E, then I want to say it is, let's just say English. And when it is, let's just say D, then I want to say, okay, it is German. And let's just say else, I want to say it is others. I can have both of this used at any place I want. Okay, that is very much possible. You can do that. And as this is also doing the condition evaluation and assignment in a single step, you can also use it over here if you feel comfortable. But many a time I have seen people using condition more because it gives you a liberty of specifying a condition like this is more readable, because I don't to switch because I don't have to switch on a particular column. Instead I can specify a number of conditions. So I have seen people using this more often compared to this, but its purpose of this is the same, behavior is also the same. I hope it makes sense till now.
So switch would be on a particular column.
Yeah, switch would be on a particular column. That's why it is called switch the behavior based on something.
Okay.
Now before going forward, I want to experiment something. If it works, I would be getting a gift myself, otherwise we'll just see. If I want to assign let's just say,
Yeah, Sumit. Hi.
yep, yeah, please, yeah, Gaurav.
I was speaking.
Sorry, can you please be a bit more loud? I can't hear you clearly.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Tell me.
Yeah. On line number 1 second. You have written that query right just now. Please go to that line number at last, I guess.
Yeah.
So there you have written character 30, right? So it means it will hold 30 character, right? LV string. But
Yeah.
if you don't write, so it will take automatically, like you are assigning English or German. So it will take, right? Or no?
So ultimately, the left-hand side variable should get the data. So as I have a value, let's just write in hash over here.
Okay. Okay. We have to write a hash.
As we have to write hash. So either of these things you have to take first. Second thing, as it is a hard-coded value, it would be able to take. But the rule says if you are not giving with any hard-coded value, because that won't be there in the live project, you won't be going with the hard coding because your code review won't get passed, and that's not a good way of programming.
Correct.
So what you would have to do is, if you are not specifying the data, if you are not having a predefined data type over here, go with the output data type. How you want the output, what is the data type that you are looking your output to populated into. Because currently what would happen is it would give you the output in, let's just say, character 10 or character 8, depending on the value which is getting determined. But when you are using in some sort of where condition or somewhere where the data type matching is mandatory, then you would be stuck somewhere. That's why the type specific assignment is very much important, and that is why I prefer, if your left hand side variable is not assigned, go with a data type. If it is assigned, then write a hash over here. In any way, the variable that you would be getting at any type of execution would be a fixed one. So your further program won't actually fail anytime. Okay, that's a good way of programming.
So it means if LV string is predefined, then we have to write hash over there, right?
Exactly. So you might have seen many places where might have write hash. So if you say LTPO data,
Yes.
okay, the structure LSEKKO. So wherever there is a predefined, then I'll use hash.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Now, next
So
thing.
if it is a work area.
Once again, I'll just go. Yeah, it is work area over here. Tell me.
And if it was not predefined,
then we can try something. That's the only way. Okay. So first thing, if you are trying something, then of course it should give you the type of the structured type. Why? Because if you say EBLN, then EBLN won't be able to determine what is the EBLN containing. It should be connected to some sort of data type. So either you specify a type over here, your TY, or you specify a kind of a work area hash, right? Because these are the columns which are something connected to database. So if you directly specify it like this, it won't be able to derive the type out of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, next thing is, can I have can I have a structured prepared out of that? That is something I want to see, because that is also something I am interested in. I have not done that earlier. EKKO inline, I guess. If you don't mind, can I mute you? You can unmute yourself.
Sumit,
Uh,
like I got confused. Like this hash will work when we have already predefined data type, or even here when you see 92, data
so
is
the
declaring. Mhm,
okay, so the rule is if the
mhm,
resultant expression is able to derive its type, then it would work. But the resultant variable would be derived it would be able to derive its type when you are good getting with some sort of hard coded values or something. But that's not the right way, because HANA is a we can say working very type specific. If you are working on a HANA migration project, you might have seen that the Metner, the other data type which are already changed with its number of characters. Now you are doing a rework over there. Why we are doing a rework? Because the variable that we have defined earlier are not matching with the, so ultimately source and target data type are not matching. That would fail. Okay, so
mhm.
if you are depending that, I oops, actually resetted the system. Maybe system is taking some time. Okay, so if your source and target data type are not matching going forward, if you are connecting with any sort of SQL, it would start failing. Okay,
Mhm.
because that's how HANA works, and that's why the rule says if the system is able to derive the type, then you can go with the hash. Otherwise, you can go with the data type. But um, the good way of programming says in any way you should be the one who is providing the data type. Either declare it earlier, or I can say provide the data type while assigning the value to it using instead of a hash. Okay, that is a rule. Okay.
Okay. So
Um,
just one more thing, value will, when we will use value, actually when you showed code before value introduced, so there when we pass some data from internal table, um, it doesn't ask for value. Oh, it was working, but later when we get some data from internal table based on some condition, there we specified value.
So value keyword we ideally specify when we want to. Okay, so there are multiple ways.
Mm,
First of all, if you want to populate the value in a structure and you don't want to go with individual lines assignment, LSEKKO, one field assigned, second field assigned, and if you don't want to go in that direction, and if you want to do that assignment in a single step, then you would be going with the value. Same goes with the internal table.
mm,
Next thing is, while you are reading from an internal table and you don't want to handle the exception, instead you want to make that execution optional, or you want to provide some sort of default execution output. If the first one fails, then you would be using the value keyword. So ultimately, the left hand side variable from the right hand side execution expression, if you want to evaluate and assign in a
mhm,
single statement, in a single
mhm.
step of execution, then you are using a value keyword.
Okay, fine.
Okay, and I think there is some issue with the server. Okay. Just wait for a moment, or I can say just okay. It's 12:47. Uh, give me 5 minutes. Have 5 minutes bio break. I'll just check with the server team and get the server. There is
Yeah,
some issue with the server. Okay. So it's 10 for
we will take a
12:47.
5 minutes break as well. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We'll see you after 5 minutes then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we do have the server back. Are we also back in the session, or we are still on the break? Okay, so I can see few of you are here. So I hope you can also hear me. Perfect. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's just resume from where we actually left. And wow. Someone did clean up of this.
So Sumit,
Yeah, please.
yeah, so if we have to have a one line difference between a condition and a switch means what it would be then? A generic explanation of condition and switch.
So ultimately, switch is something where we need a pilot. Pilot in
Okay.
the sense,
Columns.
let's just yeah, exactly, a column on which whose different values would determine which particular case should get executed.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so that is something which is not possible in condition, because in
Condition.
condition you
Yeah.
would need to write whole condition.
Condition. Yeah. Okay.
So yep, I think someone did a system copy, it seems. Nice. Okay, never mind. I mean, I'll just start with one new program and we'll just start with one more scenario. Okay. Oh. Now, what we want to go over here is condition and switch we learn. We learn how operations can be performed on internal table value, and in operator we also learn. Now let's just try creating an example, okay, which ultimately helps us how this all the things can be used in a single place. For example, something is going on, it seems. Let's see. Okay, I can say example. So what we are trying to achieve is we are trying to just create an example which would ultimately use the concepts that we learn. So value keyword, the condition operators, the looping onto internal table internally. and generating the some sort of output that we need. Let's just define some problem statement. So again, yeah, sorry guys. Yeah, very sorry. It's sorry.
I think backend server, they are doing something.
Yeah, I just called the server team. They said there was some
Yeah.
glitch. They resolved and they are restarting the server. It went up and now,
Yeah, it is down.
but it's wrong timing. They are actually following. Either
Right.
we are or they are. So they just. I've actually again contacted him. He said he's looking, but let's give 2 more minutes. If it's wasting more time, then I guess we can consider this topic in the next session. But I think it should not make it should not take more than 2 to 3 minutes. So let's just give
Yeah.
me 2 to 3 minutes. I'll check.
Okay.
Hello. Yeah, I just checked with the server team. So there is some sort of system crash which just occurred. So what I'll propose is what we are left with today, we can cover it tomorrow. And for that, I guess can we connect sometime earlier? I guess if it's official 11 to 1:30, can we connect sometime at 10? So we can cover what we have already left over here, and what we would be covering tomorrow. We can have that. And of course, it won't take more than half an hour because we are only left with half an hour content. But just to ensure, and if we can also get release, or you can say if you get free sometime earlier than what we have planned, then it would also be good for you. So let's just connect at around 10 if you all are okay with that.
10:30 should be fine. 10 is
Okay.
it's 10:30.
How fine for me as well. How about rest of you? Are we all fine with 10:30 then? Gaurav, Pallavi, Shiva, because there was some system crash, so I don't think we should waste time over here with.
Okay.
Okay, na? So let's just connect tomorrow at 10:30. So we would resume from here, and yeah, we'll cover the tomorrow's topic as well. Okay, then yeah, see you guys. Thank you, and yeah, we'll see you tomorrow then.
Thank you.
So but you would be receiving the recording, no? No? After some time?
Definitely. So recording is on
Okay.
my side. It won't get crashed. So I'll be sharing that for sure.
Oh. Oh.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Bye.